Welcome back to today's deep dive. It is Friday, June 5, 2026. And I want to start by asking you to just think about how you're feeling right now. Like not just physically, but mentally.
Yeah, that's a really important question to start with.
Right. Because if you are anything like most people navigating the modern world, there's a very good chance you are walking around with this bone-deep, just pervasive sense of exhaustion.
Oh, absolutely. And we're not talking about the kind of tired that a good night's sleep or a weekend getaway can fix.
No, exactly. It's a heavy, grinding fatigue that almost seems to attach itself to your very identity. So today, we are embarking on a mission to figure out the exact architecture of that exhaustion and, more importantly, how to dismantle it.
It's going to be a good one.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are exploring a fascinating, just deeply philosophical document today called The Trial of Two Lines. And our objective for this deep dive is to map out its really unconventional blueprint for a fulfilling life.
And it really is unconventional, you know? It asks us to fundamentally change how we interact with time, the burdens we carry, and, well, the relentless demands of our own ego.
Yeah, the ego plays a huge part. And what kind of struck me right away is that it doesn't offer like a list of habits or whatever.
Right. What makes this document so striking is that it completely ignores the usual productivity hacks or, typical stress management tips. It offers this complete geometric realignment of how we perceive our existence.
Geometric realignment. I love that phrasing.
It really is, because it presents two distinct trajectories for human life. The first is what it calls the horizontal path.
So paint a picture of that horizontal path for us.
Okay, picture a flat, endless plane where you are constantly pushing forward. You're trudging against the wind, meeting resistance with every single step. I mean, it is a life defined entirely by friction and force.
Ugh. That sounds exhausting just thinking about it.
Exactly. And it contrasts this with a vertical ascent, a path that is soaring, completely effortless, and fundamentally light.
Okay, let's unpack this because that horizontal plane is where I think, well, almost all of us spend the vast majority of our lives, right?
Oh, without a doubt. It's the default setting.
Yeah. And the horizontal journey is described as this place where we use our own sheer will and effort to just force outcomes. And in doing so, we are in a state of constant collision.
Constant friction.
Right. And there is a metaphor in the material that just stopped me in my tracks. It argues that living horizontally, relying entirely on your own limited power to secure your existence, is like digging a well with a needle.
Digging a well with a needle, it's just...
The absolute absurdity of that image really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? Like, can you imagine the wear and tear?
Yeah.
The tiny microscopic progress you make while expending massive amounts of energy?
Yeah, it perfectly illustrates the sheer mechanical inefficiency of how we operate day to day. But we have to look closer at the actual mechanism generating that friction.
Like, why is it so heavy?
Exactly. Why is this path so unbelievably heavy? And there's a profound psychological assertion made here. The world itself doesn't actually exhaust us.
Wait, really? Because it definitely feels like the world is what's making me tired.
I know. But the text argues that the external world is just a neutral arena of events. What actually exhausts us is the ego, what the philosophy specifically refers to as the nafs.
The naf.
Right. The nafs is that part of human consciousness that just insists on placing itself at the absolute, undisputed center of reality.
It's that voice in your head, right?
Yes. It operates on this relentless internal monologue. It's always saying, I will do it, I will carry it, I will protect it, I will control the outcome.
Right.
And when you adopt that posture, you are dragging an immense invisible weight onto your own shoulders. You start merely interacting with the events of your life and become locked in a permanent, exhausting defense of your own, I-ness.
It sounds like we're obsessively insisting on micromanaging the entire universe.
Yeah.
It actually reminds me of an analogy. Imagine you're walking through a massive, crowded airport.
Yeah. Okay, I'm picturing it.
And you have this incredibly heavy, oversized suitcase. And it has wheels.
Of course it has wheels.
But instead of just popping up the handle and letting the wheels do the work, your nafs convinces you that you have to bear hug the thing.
Oh my gosh.
You are sweating, your back is aching, you are bumping into people, completely strained, but you absolutely refuse to set it down because you honestly think letting go means losing control.
That is exactly it. You think the wheels won't work without you carrying the whole thing.
Right. So how do we put the suitcase down? Like, how do we stop digging this horizontal well with a needle?
Well, the shift happens when we alter our fundamental identity in relation to our burdens. The text says we have to relinquish the illusion of being the owner and step into the role of a trustee.
The owner versus the trustee. That is a huge shift.
It really is. Think about the profound psychological difference between owning an asset and holding an asset in trust. When you believe you own a burden, the ultimate success or failure, the absolute security of that thing, rests entirely on your personal power.
Which is terrifying, honestly.
It is terrifying because human power is incredibly limited. But when you carry something as a trust, you understand you are merely stewarding it.
So you don't just abandon it, right? You still do the work.
Exactly. You still do your absolute best. You care for it, you nurture it, but you recognize that the ultimate outcome isn't solely generated by your own willpower. The moment you make that shift, you stop revolving around your own ego. You step off the horizontal plane of the naphs and begin to revolve around a much greater center.
There is actually a beautiful couplet from the text that captures the relief of that shift perfectly. I want to read it. It says, "The one who leans upon himself grows weary with every breath, but the soul that clings to trust turns skyward like a bird."
Turns skyward like a bird. That's incredible.
Isn't it? I just love that imagery of turning skyward, of finally accessing that vertical ascent. And, you can actually observe this out in the real world.
How so?
Well, we all know those rare individuals who just carry an unexplainable, radiant serenity. You look at their life circumstances and you know they haven't had it easy.
Right, they've been through a lot.
Yeah, they faced massive setbacks, illness, financial ruin, whatever it might be, but they remain incredibly light.
Yeah.
And the text suggests it's because they refuse to read existence to the narrow circle of material causes.
Yes, and taking that a step further, when you are trapped in that narrow material circle, the math of your life never works out in your favor.
What do you mean by the math of your life?
Well, every problem presents a material demand that you, and only you, must supply the energy to solve. If your personal energy reserves are lower than the problem requires, the inevitable result is despair.
Because you're the owner.
Yeah.
You have to foot the bill entirely.
Exactly. But individuals who operate as trustees have learned a completely different mechanics of living. They don't try to puff up their naphs to match the intimidating size of their problems.
They just admit they can't do it alone.
Yeah, they acknowledge their helplessness. But rather than letting that limitation crush them, they use it as a doorway. Recognizing their own lack of power brings them right to the threshold of infinite power.
Yeah.
The horizontal line requires your constant, exhausting friction, but the vertical axis operates entirely on surrender.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. If the horizontal plane is about forcing our way forward with a needle, what are the actual mechanics of getting on the vertical elevator?
It's a great question.
Because does this require retreating to a mountaintop for decades of intense, solitary, intellectual struggle? Honestly, trying to outthink and outmaneuver your own ego for 30 years sounds just as exhausting as carrying the suitcase.
Oh, completely. But what's fascinating here is the total rejection of that idea in the text.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the vertical ascent doesn't require decades of intellectual grinding. In fact, the intellect alone can't even get you there.
So what does?
The philosophy states that the heart can cross in a single instant the exact same distance the mind has spent years trying to walk.
In a single instant.
Yes.
Yeah.
It uses the metaphor of a magnet to explain this physics of grace. Think about a piece of iron. It can sit there forever, heavy and inert.
Right.
But when it is drawn near a powerful magnet, it suddenly becomes subject to an unseen field of attraction. It defies its own gravity, not by its own effort, but by yielding to the field.
So it's not fighting the gravity, it's just submitting to a stronger pull.
Exactly. Similarly, the human soul enters a field of divine attraction when it turns genuinely and sincerely toward truth. It isn't a state you conquer through sheer effort. It's a reality you yield to.
And that field of attraction is a two-way dynamic, right? It isn't just humanity desperately straining its neck, reaching up into a silent void.
Right. It is also mercy reaching down. Constructing an infinite vertical ascent using only finite human power is a mathematical impossibility.
You just can't get there from here.
No, you can't. The catalyst is the sincerity of the turning. When that internal pivot away from the naphs and toward truth becomes completely sincere, the unseen field engages and mercy begins to lift you.
There's actually another couplet for this that illustrates that beautifully. It says, "One step turned toward truth invites 1,000 breaths of grace. When the heart finds its direction, the roads unfold by themselves."
The roads unfold by themselves.
Yeah, you aren't paving them anymore. But the concept requires a complete inversion of how we think about progress.
Yeah.
Because to go up, it seems like you actually have to go down.
This is the great paradox of the vertical axis. We are conditioned to think of ascent as a rising up, a puffing up of the chest, an accumulation of status or knowledge.
Climbing the corporate ladder, building the resume.
Exactly. But true ascent here is the ego descending. As long as you are puffed up with pride, as long as your nafs is insisting on its own sovereignty, you are incredibly dense.
And dense means heavy.
Right. Pride creates density, and density makes you heavy. Surrender strips away that density. You don't ascend by growing stronger wings and flapping harder against the horizontal wind. You ascend by laying down your armor.
It completely upends the modern achievement mindset. It's about subtraction, not addition.
Yes, subtraction.
And the specific moments highlighted in the text as being equal to years of struggle are so quiet. A single prostration, a sincere plea for forgiveness, a silent hour in the deep of night.
They're almost invisible to the outside world.
Totally invisible.
Yeah.
But in those incredibly specific, quiet moments of surrender, you step entirely out of the horizontal noise and the elevator simply rises.
Because in those moments, you are completely bypassing the naf's desperate demand to be the hero of the narrative.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, the hero of the narrative.
Right. You are willfully acknowledging your own smallness, your own lack of ultimate control, and by dropping that illusion, you are instantly connected to the vastness of the vertical plane.
So what does this all mean for us functionally? If this spatial shift from the horizontal to the vertical is the goal, where does it actually happen? Like, where do we find this vertical elevator in our everyday routine?
Well, this brings us to the core temporal argument of the material, which is just fascinating. Truth only ever enters human experience through the door of the NW.
The present moment.
Yes. The vertical axis does not exist in the past, and it does not exist in the future. It only intersects with our lives in the immediate present moment.
That makes sense.
The grounding in physical reality is absolute here. The text says water is drunk now. Love is felt now. The scent of a flower is inhaled now.
You can't drink yesterday's water.
Exactly. You cannot experience the reality of a sunset yesterday or the taste of an apple tomorrow. The true, tangible fabric of life is only ever woven in this exact split second.
Which provides a brilliant diagnosis of our modern psychological fracture. There's a line that points out how the body physically exists in today, but the mind is almost always wandering in yesterday or pacing anxiously in tomorrow.
We are entirely split in half.
We really are.
And that split is the ultimate engine of our fatigue. When your body is in one time zone and your mind is in another, you are generating massive internal friction.
Because they aren't aligned.
Right. The past is a simulation. It's nothing more than a memory reconstructed by your brain. And the future is a hallucination. It's just a set of possibilities that haven't collapsed into reality yet.
So neither of them are actually real.
No. The only place life actually touches, the only place where the vertical field of grace can interact with you, is the present. When you constantly yank your mind out of the now, you are literally unplugging yourself from reality. You are scattering your soul's energy across phantom timelines.
Okay, but hold on. Let me push back on this just a bit.
Sure.
If I just sit around intensely experiencing the now, like smelling the flowers, drinking the water, my bills aren't going to magically get paid tomorrow.
Right.
Doesn't this relentless focus on the vertical present just breed irresponsibility? If we ignore the past, we repeat our mistakes. And if we ignore the future, we just drive straight off a cliff.
That's the tension everyone feels when they first encounter this idea. It feels counterintuitive. But living in the moment, in this specific philosophical context, does not mean adopting complete amnesia or a reckless disregard for tomorrow.
Okay, so what does it mean?
You absolutely must extract lessons from the past, and you absolutely must formulate plans for the future. The critical distinction is about where you place the center of gravity for your soul.
The center of gravity.
Yes. You visit the past to retrieve a lesson, you visit the future to drop a waypoint on your map, but you immediately return your consciousness to the present to do the actual walking.
Oh, you visit them, but you don't live there.
Precisely. If you move the center of your soul into yesterday or tomorrow, your peace vanishes. If your soul takes up permanent residence in tomorrow, you live in a state of perpetual vibrating anxiety about a reality you cannot control.
Because the future hasn't happened yet.
Right. And if it drops anchor in yesterday, you are trapped in a cycle of resentment or nostalgia over a reality you can never alter.
So why is it so incredibly hard to keep that center of gravity in the present? I mean, we all struggle with this. The narrative outlines two very specific mental traps that the nafs uses to pull us off that vertical axis and drag us back into the horizontal grind.
Yes, the phantoms.
Right. Trap number one is the phantom of the maybe. This is where the distinction between healthy imagination and toxic daydreaming becomes crucial.
It's a fine line.
It is, because imagination is clearly valued in the text. It's the engine for art, scientific discovery, civilization itself. But there is a fracture point where it turns poisonous.
And that fracture point occurs the very moment dreams detach from corresponding action.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you use imagination as a blueprint to build something in the real world, it's healthy. But when imagination sours into daydreaming, it stops being a tool for building reality and becomes a replacement for reality.
Oh, wow.
It becomes a substitute for responsibility. People start deriving their dopamine hit, their sense of pleasure, from the sheer act of designing a life rather than the messy, difficult act of actually living it.
Deriving pleasure from designing rather than doing. Honestly, we all do this.
Oh, absolutely.
You map out the perfect career trajectory, the flawless relationship dynamic, the ultimate fitness routine in your head. It feels incredibly good to plan it because in your head, there is no friction.
Zero friction. You never fail in your own daydreams.
Exactly. And because it feels so rewarding, you just build a house there. You stay in the maybe, living this pristine life that could be, while your actual messy real life goes completely neglected.
It functions as a psychological anesthetic. You alienate yourself from the present moment because the imaginary world is always 100% compliant to the demands of your nafs.
Because you're the boss of the daydream.
Right. On the horizontal plane of real life, the world pushes back. People disagree with you, plans fail, bodies get tired. But in your daydreams, you are the absolute, undisputed master of the universe.
But it's a trap.
It is a massive trap. The danger is that while you are enjoying that illusion of absolute mastery, you are entirely alone and completely disconnected from the vertical grace that only exists in the real now.
Okay, then there is trap number two, which pulls us in the exact opposite direction. The phantoms of then. The illusion of nostalgia.
This one is so common.
It really is. And to be clear, we aren't talking about healthy memory here, right? Remembering where you came from is essential for a sense of rootedness and loyalty. The trap is triggered when the past is systematically idealized.
Nostalgia is one of the naf's most deceptive defense mechanisms.
Oh, so?
Well, when we heavily idealize the past, it ceases to be a historical record and morphs into a purely emotional sanctuary. There's a razor-sharp observation made regarding how this works. When we fall into nostalgia, our brain selectively edits the footage.
Oh, like a movie trailer.
Exactly. We remember what we miss, but we conveniently delete the horizontal grinding, the boredom, the pain, and the anxiety that we actually experienced at the time.
We just cut all the bad parts out.
Yep.
We create a pristine, fictionalized highlight reel. And the devastating consequence of comparing reality to a fiction is that today is always devalued.
Because today can never possibly compete with the heavily edited, perfectly color-graded movie of yesterday.
Never.
Reality always has friction, so nostalgia becomes this hidden escape hatch from the responsibilities of the present. It makes us feel like the real life already happened, like we missed the golden age and now we are just aimlessly playing out the string.
And what's happening while we do that?
Meanwhile, life is vibrantly, relentlessly unfolding right in front of us, begging us to participate, but we are just too busy looking in the rearview mirror to notice.
Right. So to dismantle these traps and keep us anchored on the vertical axis, 3 fundamental rules of balance are offered in the text.
Let's go through them. Because these aren't just poetic maxims, they are practical operating instructions for the mind.
Exactly.
Rule number 1, let the past be a root, not a chain.
Meaning you draw nourishment and stability from your experiences. A root gives a tree the ability to stand firm in a storm, but a chain restricts movement.
Right. When you ruminate on past failures or obsess over past glories, you are chaining yourself to a ghost. You extract the wisdom and you cut the emotional chain.
Okay, rule number 2. Let the future be a direction, not an escape.
You need a compass heading. You need to aim your daily actions toward a goal. But the nafs loves to use the future as a bunker.
A bunker.
Yeah, like when the present moment becomes difficult or boring, we mentally flee into someday I'll be happy, someday I'll be secure. Using the future to aim your work today is necessary, but using it to avoid the discomfort of today is a trap.
That is so true. And finally, rule number 3. Let imagination be an inspiration, not an immobilizer.
Let it show you what is possible. Let it stretch the boundaries of what you believe you can achieve. But the very second it becomes a substitute for taking actual physical steps in the real world, you must cut it off.
Because you have to stay in the now.
Yes. The soul gathers its strength. It finds its absolute healthiest expression only in the spaces where it makes contact with tangible reality.
Let's pull all of these threads together because the geometric realignment we've explored today is profound. We started by identifying that our bone-deep exhaustion comes from trapping ourselves on the horizontal plane.
Trudging against the wind.
Right. We are desperately digging a well with a needle. We are carrying the impossibly heavy suitcase of our NAFs, constantly demanding control, insisting, I will do it, I will protect it, I will own it.
But we don't have to.
Exactly. We are offered an elegant escape. We don't have to be the ultimate owners of our lives or our burdens. We can step into the lightness of being trustees. We can set the suitcase down.
And when we make that shift, when we stop trying to force the universe to revolve around our ego and turn sincerely toward a greater truth, the physics change.
The magnet pulls us.
Right, the unseen magnet pulls us. We find that vertical lightness. But to step onto that elevator, to allow that mercy to lift us, our center of gravity has to be entirely in the NOW.
We can't be scattered.
No, we cannot afford to have our energy scattered among the idealized ghosts of yesterday or the daydreamed hallucinations of Taro.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a completely different way to apply this. We've talked a lot about personal burdens and internal struggles today, but think about the people you are responsible for.
Oh, that's a great application.
Right. Maybe it's a child you are raising, a team you are managing at work, or even an aging parent you are caring for. So often we approach these relationships on the horizontal plane. We subconsciously act like the owner of our child's success or the owner of our team's flawless performance.
And when they stumble.
Exactly. When they stumble, we feel a crushing, exhausting weight because our ego tells us we failed to control the outcome. So what would happen to your stress levels and to the quality of those relationships today if you shifted your perspective?
If you became a trustee.
Yes. What if you realized you don't own your child's future or your team's perfection? You are simply their trustee. Your job is to steward them with love and diligence in the present moment and let go of the absolute control your ego craves. Imagine how much lighter you and they would finally feel.